Broadcasts of HIKI No are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo. And by HIKI No Founding Underwriter Bank of Hawaii, investing in Hawaii's future by promoting collaboration, critical thinking, and other 21st century skills through HIKI No. And HMSA, helping Hawaii's youth and their families stay healthy today, tomorrow, and for generations to come. HMSA, trusted for generations.
Next on HIKI No, stories from across the island chain.
On Oahu, Aliamanu Middle School tells the story of female students from remote areas of Hawaii Island who attend a flight school on Ford Island, while students from Waianae Intermediate study the pros and cons of the Extended Learning Time program.
Also on Oahu, students from St. Francis School take us to the annual whale count on the South Shore, while students at Sacred Hearts Academy show how computers and technology are changing the way they learn.
From Maui, students at Lahainaluna High School call on the experts for safety tips on stand-up paddling. Students at Maui Waena Intermediate covered the controversy over genetically modified organisms on Maui, while students at Lahaina Intermediate show us how to make a traditional Polynesian drink.
And from Kauai, this episode of HIKI No comes to you from the HIKI No students of Waimea High School, home of the Menehune. That's next on the nation's first statewide student news network, HIKI No. Can do!
Welcome to Kauai, and especially to the west side of our beautiful island. The west side of Kauai is not only home to the Waimea High School Menehune, but it also has some very significant history. So please join us as we embark on our little journey. Our first story takes us to the Valley Isle, where students from Maui Waena Intermediate look into the fury over GMOs, genetically modified organisms.
The rain could not dampen the spirits or the passion of nearly 2,000 protesters that came in Wailuku, Maui on Saturday, March 23rd. This flood of concerned citizens joined to march against giant seed crop company Monsanto and their presence here on Maui, with regards to developing genetically modified organisms in their agricultural products.
It's impressive what they're doing. Genetically modified things are interesting, but particularly what Monsanto is doing is taking it and running for profit rather than the general health of the population.
They are a chemical company. They started out making pesticides and Agent Orange, DDTs, Roundup. And they are also linked to colony collapse disorder, which is killing off all the bees all over the world.
For seed corn, you have to sanitize the soil. You see over here on the ground, I bet you they sprayed this. And even with spraying it, weeds still grow. You take a Google Earth view of the GMO cornfields, the ground is bare.
Monsanto was not present at the march, but was available the following Monday to comment on the march and give their side of the story.
There's people very passionately against using biotechnology. So they come up with all kinds of data claims. And many of these, or actually all of them so far, have been proved to be totally false. There's people very passionately against using biotechnology. I have 3 kids, 13, 12, and 9 years old. I prefer to feed them GMO because I know how safe it is and how much study is done.
With such extreme and divergent views held by the anti- and pro-GMO movements, how can society possibly work through this issue?
Thing is, if we're going to come to a solution, we need to kind of depolarize and bring us to some common ground that we can move forward so that we can still grow more food, because it still comes down to we have a lot of food to grow.
Until such time, it is likely that anti-GMO protests will continue to get louder and louder. From Maui Waena Intermediate, this is Justin Yago reporting for HIKI No.
If you'd like to comment on this story or anything you see on HIKI No, join the discussion at facebook.com/HIKINOCanDo or tweet us at twitter.com/HIKINOCanDo.
This area is known as the Russian Fort, or Fort Elizabeth. It is located at the entrance of Waimea town. It was built by a Russian man, named George Sheffer in 1816 with the assistance of Kauai's King Kaumoali'i. Officially, Kauai had pledged allegiance to King Kamehameha. However, Kaumoali'i thought he could reclaim his kingdom with help from Russia. But when Russians heard of Sheffer's promises and plans, they sent a ship to bring him back home. Today, this fort is merely a remnant of the stone foundation. Our next story takes us to the Salt Lake District of Oahu, where students from Aliamanu Middle School tell the story of some young women who got the chance to dream big.
Pearl Harbor and its World War II memorials are a popular destination for many tourists and school groups. However, one attraction that is getting noticed is the Pacific Aviation Museum on Ford Island. Of particular interest is the museum's flight school for girls.
Well, last spring we received a small grant from the Women's Fund of Hawaii to hold a STEM program, science, technology, engineering, math program for middle school girls. And I thought about all the wonderful assets we have here at the museum, all the planes, the stories, the workers, and I thought, let's do flight school for girls, introduce girls to the history and technology of aviation.
In January 2013, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade girls from Kauai and Pahala Elementary School on the Big Island of Hawaii participated in the flight school's 6th class. For 3 days, they took part in lessons and activities that might compel them to pursue a career in aviation.
Oh, I think it's fantastic, and the fact that it's flight school for girls, it kind of gives them ideas. Like, yeah, you know, I mean, I know that girls can believe they can do this, but it's kind of nice that it's being directed toward them, so they can. There's something a little more concrete rather than just say reading it in a book or something like that. Something they can get their hands on and see that, yeah, you know, this is pretty cool. I can do this.
To attend the flight school, students had to apply and write an essay on why they should be chosen.
Well, one, it would look good on my college application. I'd get to go somewhere else in life. And I've always secretly wanted to be a pilot, so that's one of the reasons why I wanted to go.
Since this was a 3-day program, the USS Missouri was put into service as their home away from home. On the historic ship, they had their meals, toured the ship, and learned about the weather. The most memorable moments on the ship were the sleeping arrangements.
It was fun, and the beds is like really small. And every single time I wake up, I always hit my head on top of the light that is like right above.
Through the classroom activities and workshops, the students found out just how much math and science have to do with learning how to fly. They were taught about navigation, drag, lift, and other properties related to the physics of flight. To see it all in action, the students used flight simulators and were treated to an air show of remote control model airplanes by volunteers from a local RC organization. This was capped off with a candy drop from one of the planes. The conclusion of the program brought everyone involved together with a winging ceremony and farewell. Sponsors and volunteers were acknowledged, and students and teachers were congratulated with a certificate, a sticker, and of course, their flight wings.
A lot of the girls probably have never thought of being pilots or even anything to do with aviation, and so giving them this experience early allowed them to have more choices later on when they graduate from high school.
The Flight School for Girls appears to be meeting the need for more career opportunities for young women. Along with the flight school, the Pacific Aviation Museum has a barnstorming tour that goes into 6th grade classrooms to teach students about aviation. From Aliamanu Middle School, I'm Brianna Marie Pagarigan from HIKI No.
We're back on the island of Kauai here at Menehune Ditch in Waimea. Legend states that the Menehune built this ditch in just one night. The High Chief banned the villagers from leaving their homes one night so that the Menehune could build the ditch safely without being seen. The result was a huge irrigation system made with smooth lava stone. It brought the water from Waimea River to the taro fields. We travel now to the west side of Oahu, where students from Waianae Intermediate explore the pluses and minuses of the extended learning time program taking place in some Hawaii public schools.
A longer school year, a longer school day. These are the biggest changes for schools in the zone. There are 2 zones of school innovation in the Hawaii State Department of Education, Ka'ukea'au Pahoa Complex area on the island of Hawaii and the Nanakuli and Waianae Complex on the island of Oahu. Under the Race to the Top grant, the Department of Education is tasked with making changes that will help turn around these low-performing schools. One big change is extended learning time, otherwise known as ELT.
Basically, all schools that are part of the Zone of Innovation have this extended learning time. And extended learning time is more to shorten the academic gap for our kids, because many of our kids weren't making proficiency on our HSA reading and math.
To shorten the gap, 1 hour was added to the school day 4 times a week. During this hour, students have either a reading or a math class, which is the 2 subject areas tested in the Hawaii State Assessment. Does this extra hour make a difference?
Absolutely. Anything that is focused on academics, specifically to building up on skills and strategies to make that student successful in reading, writing, math, just the critical thinking level skills, that will definitely be a positive end goal of success in not just HSA, the Hawaii State Assessment, but later on when we go to Common Core state standards, they're going to be successful in that as well.
ELT has definitely helped me improve my grades. Before, my grades were kind of suffering, and now they've improved a lot.
However, as much as ELT is helping to improve student learning, more time means more money.
I am worried about the financial backing because you need money to keep the students and teachers after school.
Because that part means the extended learning time will not continue if the state doesn't have enough money to pay for it. For some teachers, the cost of ELT is more than just about money.
For me, the ELT class is actually a negative thing because it's really impacted my media program. Because of the extra hour of school that we have, I'm no longer able to stay after school and work with my students. Normally, my students would work with me every day after school, but with the extra hour on our day, I'm not able to stay as late as I normally would because I need to go home and take care of my own children.
Despite the negative costs, ELT was in effect to make a positive impact on students.
Based on my experience from first quarter, I think that students will show an improvement in their HSA scores. However, it's always up to the student to do their best and strive for excellence.
And striving for excellence is what is needed to help close the gap for these students. This is Jana Campos from Waianae Intermediate School, reporting for HIKI No.
We're back on Kauai. We're still on the west side, but we have moved to a small town called Kekaha. Behind me is St. Teresa's Church. This church has a distinction of being the westernmost Catholic church in the United States and with an accredited parish school. It sits on the beach and faces the ocean. Our next story takes us to the Kaimuki district of Oahu, where students from Sacred Hearts Academy show us how technology has changed the way they learn.
Despite the advances and many uses of technology, students who love the new methodologies and techniques of education can also have challenges the constantly changing formats pose. The introduction of mobile computing has been integrated in the school system over the past few years.
I was here when we didn't have computers, and now that we do have computers, it's a lot more efficient and we can get things done quicker in class.
Teachers and students also share the ability to collaborate and communicate beyond the traditional classroom setting.
When I need to contact a teacher outside of class hours or outside of school hours, then I usually send them an email because I can get a response pretty quickly, and it saves me the trouble from having to go to talk to them, and they can always answer whenever they have time.
Students are faced with the challenge of copyright and citing reliable sources.
Turnitin is really easy to use because it checks for plagiarism, allowing us to put things in our own words. And everything from turning the paper in to pure editing is done online, eliminating the need to print.
Sometimes, students find that technology might not be the best solution.
My math class uses an online textbook, and it's harder for me to kind of see the problem on paper and make changes to it and like make notes on it instead of, because now I have to look at the screen and then write it down on paper and like redraw the drawings.
Online applications allow students to share and work with their peers.
Internet has multiple resources and multiple ways of teaching a subject. So it's a necessary tool and a good tool for students who want to learn more than just what the teacher has taught them. Google Docs is my favorite thing in the world, let me just say. When it first started when I was a sophomore in high school, I was a little wary of using it because we had a lot of kinks at the beginning. But after we worked out the kinks and got it to work, it's become a reliable and great tool for me to use. Dabble in different media. So we could have a video, or we could have a cartoon or an interactive poll. So it allows the paper to be even more accessible, and not necessarily just once a month you get a paper. You could check it almost every day if you wanted to. But while I say that, it's a lot of work on the newspaper staff.
Regardless of the challenges technology presents, students are able to overcome them and add a new dimension to their education. This is Noelle Yee from Sacred Hearts Academy reporting for HIKI No.
We're back on the island of Kauai, standing where the only train robbery ever happened in the state of Hawaii. Yes, you heard me. The only train robbery ever reported happened right here. A local man wearing a mask like the robbers of the Old West movies stopped the train and stole $11,000. But don't worry, good conquered evil, because police found the money in a swamp near his home and the man was arrested. We travel now to the island of Maui, where students from Lahaina Intermediate show us how to make a traditional drink from Polynesia.
Today, we're going to show you how to make watermelon otai. This traditional Tongan drink originated in Polynesia and is great as a summertime refreshment. You'll need half a seedless watermelon, 1/2 cup of shredded coconut, a can of crushed pineapple, a can of evaporated milk, 1/2 cup of sugar, a pot, a lime, and a can of water using the can of evaporated milk. First, cut your watermelon to make it easier to grate later. We cut ours into 4ths. Grate the watermelon with the fork into the large pot. Make sure there are no big chunks. If you're not using a seedless watermelon, make sure to take out as many black seeds as you can. Then, get the can of crushed pineapple and pour it into the pot. After that, pour the evaporated milk. Get the 1/2 cup of shredded coconut and pour it into the pot. Using the can of evaporated milk, pour in 2 cans of water. After that, add some sugar to taste. Lastly, add half a lime. Some people say it brightens up the taste. Then serve and enjoy.
Cheers. Cheers. Our journey now has brought us to Hanapepe, Kauai's biggest little town. And speaking of Hanapepe, have you ever heard of Hawaiian salt? Or have you ever eaten something with Hawaiian salt in it? Well, Hanapepe has the only natural salt pond in the whole state that is still being used by descendants of ancient Hawaiians to make sea salt. For generations, these families have evaporated seawater in salt pans dug out of red soil to produce natural sea salt. The salt is bagged and used for cooking and Hawaiian medicine. We take you now to Oahu, where students from St. Francis School show us why in the spring, thousands of volunteers spend hours staring at the sea.
Aloha! We're here at the beautiful Diamond Head Lookout at the yearly Humpback Whale Count. This yearly whale count averages 2,000 volunteers, and we're asking these volunteers one simple question. What is your personal motivation for attending this event?
Well, actually, I have 2 reasons. The first is my deep love and passion that I do have for humpback whales. And the second reason is because I feel I'm providing a service for the community by partaking in the National Marine Ocean Sanctuary Whale Count this year and volunteering. They actually were spouting and also they were breaching as well.
Oh, we're coming out here to help Noah with the ocean count for 2013.
Oh. Is your first whale count, or you've been to others?
No, last year we did it as well.
Really enjoy being outside and watching the whales. I've always enjoyed whales from the time I was a young boy, and it's nice to see them in their natural environment.
Every year, the whale count lasts for 3 months. It's 1 day a month, the last Saturday of January, February, and March. So we get the range of activity, because we're actually not just counting whales, we're counting their behavior. So we get the range of activity through what they call the season, the whale season.
So there's our answer. These volunteers here are passionate about the whales and the preservation of this beautiful and mysterious creature. This is Chang reporting from St. Francis School for HIKI.
If you'd like to comment on this story or anything you see on HIKI, join the discussion at facebook.com/HIKI-CAN-DO or tweet us at twitter.com/HIKI-CAN-DO.
We're back on Kauai, standing in Hanapepe town. Hanapepe, which means bay crushed by landslides in the Hawaiian language, sits on the southwest shore of Kauai and the Hanapepe River. This quaint little town was also a backdrop for Disney's movie Lilo and Stitch, the Jurassic Park movie, The Thornbirds, and The Flight of the Intruder, which was staged right in the middle of this town. We travel now to Maui, where students from Lahainaluna High School ask the experts on how to be safe when stand-up paddling.
SUP, otherwise known as stand-up paddleboarding, has become a popular pastime. However, like any sport, there are major safety concerns.
Majority of our 911 calls recently is stand-up paddlers that can't get back to shore.
It's not injuries that we're dealing with the SUP industry. It's people getting blown out to sea.
There are many factors that beginners don't take into account when paddleboarding.
People aren't aware of the factor of the wind and maybe not too much ocean knowledge, and you can get far out there and not be able to come back in.
One way that I've heard a lot of people getting hurt is that they don't know to stop their stand-up paddleboard before hitting the shore. And so they caught a wave and they rode right into the shore and fell down.
Precautions can be taken to avoid injury and accidents while stand-up paddleboarding.
Be aware of the conditions, to go out when there's not much of any wind and to not go too far out, and to be aware if the wind's picking up. Our #1 safety tip is, if you get in any type of trouble, to lay down on your paddle and paddle it in like a surfboard. That way you stay low to the wind and you can get back to shore.
So I think it's just a combination of things that people need to pay attention to. Is #1, your own physical ability. #2 is the weather. And #3 is know your limits.
If you are considering doing or trying stand-up paddling, first of all, know your area, ask questions, and if you see any bit of white chops or white caps on the ocean, don't even go. If you do go out, the weather can change at any time, so stay close along the shoreline. Don't go out farther than you think you can swim back. Sometimes it's been so bad where we couldn't even bring the board back. We just had to end up rescuing the person, and the board was lost at sea because they were too far out and the conditions were just too windy.
A lot of tourists come here and they don't have the experience to keep themselves safe in the ocean, but they want to experience the ocean. And I think having ocean safety people around helps minimize people getting in trouble, such as our tourists, and allows them to enjoy the beauties of our wonderful ocean. They see the beauty in the beach. They don't see the beast within the beauty, which is the danger. They don't see the dangers. They're not able to see and recognize the danger. They see the sunshine, the beautiful sand, the beautiful blue water, but they don't see the dangers that come with that.
This is Erin and Melissa from Lahainaluna High School reporting for HIKI Now.
The last stop on our West Side tour has to be back in Waimea. We're at the statue of Captain James Cook, who ultimately was responsible for a large part of Waimea's history.
Well, we've come to the end of this episode of HIKI No.
Remember, all of these stories were written, shot, and edited by students like us.
We hope you enjoyed watching them as much as we enjoyed sharing them with you.
Make sure to tune in to next week's episode for more proof that Hawaii students HIKI No.
Can do!
Broadcasts of HIKI No are made possible by the support of viewers like you. Mahalo. And by HIKI No Founding Underwriter Bank of Hawaii, investing in Hawaii's future by promoting collaboration, critical thinking, and other 21st century skills through HIKI No. And HMSA, helping Hawaii's youth and their families stay healthy today, tomorrow, and for generations to come. HMSA, trusted for generations.